Welcome to our Onboard Hospitality video slot, a short and sweet video pick-me-up designed to help motivate airlines and suppliers to keep going through these toughest of times and make some positive plans for the future. We've set up some video Zoom calls with key movers and shakers in our sector, asking them each one big question on the future of in-flight service matched to their area of expertise. And with me today is Fabio Gamba, Director General of the Airline Catering Association, with a watching brief to represent the interests of airline caterers and lobby on their behalf with international governments and aviation bodies. So welcome, Fabio, and thanks for joining us in these crazy times. Do in-flight caterers have a future after post-COVID?
Well, good morning, Julie, and thanks for the opportunity. It's really good to be able to talk about these difficult times. I'd like to make perhaps a couple of points, actually even 3 points, if I may, with respect to your question, because I don't think it's that easy a question to answer. I don't think it's a, keep calm and carry on type of situation that we're through. It's an unprecedented crisis. People have been saying that for the last 3 months now. And as everyone says, I think the effects of the crisis will protract for some time now. We hear about 2 years, we even hear about 3 years. The reality is that really people don't know. I've been very often asked actually about the future of this industry now that the airlines are slashing costs wherever they can, and actually whether there is a future at all for this industry. I guess it will come as no surprise to you if I say absolutely yes, there is a future. First and foremost, because this industry is so resilient. It's been through so many tough times before. I mean, if in this 100 years long history of onboard catering, we've seen it all pretty much. And many people actually at the time were predicting that the advance of low-cost carriers would sound the death knell of onboard catering with retails and everything like that. And as a matter of fact, in hindsight, not only did it, but actually it boosted the importance of having good food on board and food as a differentiator. So definitely it has a future. Not that people needed to hear it from me, but in my humble opinion, it not only has a future, it has a very definite future. Now, if we can think a little bit for a while with our belly rather than with our brain, and actually the belly is known to be the second brain. Perhaps I do think a little bit too much with my own belly. but generally speaking, if we do that, it's interesting to note that food is definitely a very welcome interlude in a very often long and dull journey. It is this human touch that people are, vying for in an environment that is so sterile and so unnatural, as a matter of fact, as these long flying tubes where people are totally passive. So food, provide this human touch, as I say, and they long for it. They want it. It's reassuring. It's something that they are used to do, and it's something that is really reassuring them. The importance of food on board actually is not only perceived by the passenger, obviously it is also perceived by airlines. I mentioned the low-cost carriers. I don't know the numbers exactly, I don't have them in my head, but I can assure you that ancillary revenues from food for low-cost carriers is massive. Not to speak about the importance of the quality of food for brand companies that will want to cling to this, especially in difficult times. It's a way to attract the passenger. It is a way to differentiate your brand vis-a-vis other brands. So, all this tend to point that not only there is a future, I think there is honestly a rosy future for onboard catering.
And would you say as well that bringing, while at the moment people are sort of looking at food and beverage as, is that really an essential item, that ultimately it is going to be essential in terms of rebuilding passenger confidence and actually getting things back to normal, bringing some sense of normality to flying? We've seen a lot about masks and, the importance of the health and hygiene measures, but, we want it to be an enjoyable experience flying, don't we, as a passenger? It's got to have some normality to it.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you're bringing the point. Yes, indeed. Sometimes you feel that you're in such a unfriendly environment that these little things make a difference. Just to proceed on this, I believe that the crisis has shown us something, has taught us something, as I believe all the crises should actually. And even in the direst hours of this crisis, I think there are things that we can learn as an industry. And one thing that we certainly have learned is that we do not portray ourselves well enough. In other words, I don't think we are known enough as an essential element of an essential ecosystem to the decision maker, just as much as to the man on the streets. And I'll expand a little bit on that if I may, because I think this is a crucial element. Obviously, with the independence of onboard caterers in the last 20 years, we've carried on being in the shadow, providing food to the people who were not asking themselves what was standing behind that sandwich or that roast beef while eating it. And that's absolutely normal. Passengers pay for a service, not only a commodity to go from A to B. It's more than this. And they're paying for a service, and they don't want to ask themselves if their luggage is being done by this company or if their sandwich is being done by that company. So they have no clue of the thousands of people standing behind this industry. And as I said, that's normal. But in dire times, such as these ones, when you have to explain your role, when you have to explain that you are an essential element of an essential ecosystem or value chain, it becomes more difficult if it is for the first time you're doing it, if you're coming to the fore almost unexpectedly, right? And it's been quite illustrative for me to go and talk to governments and authorities of the likes. And I was really surprised to see that in many cases, people had not thought simply of going to the help or of supporting such an industry. Because in the best situation, they knew of it, but thought it was just a luxury or not an essential one. And in the worst cases, they didn't even think it existed, actually. They thought it was just a prolongation of the ticket they were buying. And that was it. So they were surprised when we were asking for some help, just like the rest of the industry. And if you're paying attention, out of the $100 billion that the airline industry has been asking for help for, I bet you that only a very tiny part of that will trickle down to our industry. So I think the lesson learned really here is we have a story to tell. We have a good story to tell. It's a story of around 200,000 people, men and women, working in a very tough environment, working in a very regulated environment, and working in a super complex environment that needs to be protected, that needs to be understood as an essential element. And this is a lesson learned. We will do our homework, and I can tell you that it's a hard lesson. We've learned it the hard way, but I think we've really learned it.
Good. And you think they are starting to listen to you? You're making some headway in some of those conversations?
Definitely we are. As I said, not as much as we would want, but I guess it's always the case. But at least, after knocking on some doors, some of them start to open. So that's good. And we're mustering numbers. We are gathering strength together under ACA. So we now really have a story to tell, and we're telling it. Perhaps for the first time, but we're doing it.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. And of course, Onboard Hospitality is keen to be a part of the storytelling. We've been covering you for 25 years, talking about this sector. So we kind of do value it. And it's very heartening to hear that, from your position, you feel like you're making a bit of headway and that the industry, has got some future. We know, necessity is the mother of invention, and we all know in-flight caterers are endlessly creative and coming up with good ideas and reinventing themselves. So thank you very much for your insights, and let's hope we see more flights flying soon and we can get a chance to experience the next wave of great culinary innovation ourselves.
Oh, we definitely will. Thank you very much for that. I mean, just to conclude, in these difficult times, people are looking for things that are reassuring them. People are looking for familiar things. They're looking for things that haven't changed. And meal and meal on board in particular will are part of this category. It's like a ceremonial. People will want to cling to it. And I'm absolutely certain that in these difficult times, just as during the recovery phase and afterwards, of course, we will see things relatively unchanged as soon as possible, back. So, so this is good notes, I think, to end with. But I'm really confident that things will soon recover and go back to normal.
Great, let's hope so. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope we can all meet together soon and discuss it in the normal way rather than through Zoom. But this worked well, so thank you for your time.